Welcome to the Comfortable in Chaos Podcast. Strangle your demons and let's go.
Y'all need Jesus!
Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk to you again because a vision that is softly creeping. Welcome to the Comfortable in Chaos Podcast. I am your host, Eric Hellberg, and you know we're living a month and a day over here. You've listened to me enough. We don't have to mention Einstein, although I like him, an eclectic dude, genius, all that, but let's move on. Mark Twain said that a man is like the moon, and I'm paraphrasing, of course. He said he has a light side that he has everyone to see. In fact, he will illuminate them with it. But he has a dark side that he does not want anyone to see. Is that you, man? And if it is, guess what? There is nothing wrong with you. Simply attempt to embrace that light more, because that is the goodness that was planted within you. I started this day and I said, God, and things just kept getting in the way. Calls and problems and stuff requiring immediate attention. And I said, damn it. I don't want any stress today. Moreover, I said I was going to wake up, take some deep breaths, read the Bible, but it didn't happen. Isn't that how it always goes? But finally, I sat my ass down and I said, God, okay, are you ready? I said it. Now, I'm not one of these guys who tells you that I hear from God, have heard from God. I know I have been prodded. I know I have seen many miraculous things. I know that I have seen outcomes occur that surprised me when I had not one inkling what to do initially. I know I have planned and constructed and put different items and logistics in place for them to all go to shit, and then for him to show me the proper way to go. That I do know. So I said, okay, I'm going to open the book. I said this in my thoughts, the Bible. I opened it up. I simply grabbed toward the middle. I ended up on my version, page 514, and I ended up in the Psalm 43. And it says, vindicate me, O God, and plead my cause against an ungodly nation. Rescue me from deceitful and wicked men. You are God, my stronghold. Why have you rejected me? Why must I go about mourning, oppressed by the enemy? Send forth your light and your truth. Let them guide me. Let them bring me to your holy mountain, to the place where you dwell. Then will I go to the altar of God, to God, my joy and my delight. I will praise you with the harp, O God, my God. It's a harp. We know it's King David, a man after God's own heart who has gone through all kinds of things. Actually, many things. He was oppressed. He was put down. Created a conundrum of different things for himself and his nation. Repented and came back. But that legacy persisted, and he dealt with it from there on. And that got me to thinking. I mentioned it in my previous episode of shows that were on, or I should say upcoming. And my son and I were watching The Last Samurai last night. Yeah, dude comes to me out of the blue and says, hey, Dad, did you know that back in old time, feudal Japan. He tells me, feudal Japan? What the? I didn't even know what a feudal other than a feud was. And that the old ways were going against the new ways, and the new ways going against the old ways. And I'm like, son, I've got the perfect show for us. It's about everything you're asking me about. You want to watch it? He's like, yeah, Dad. We start watching it. And maybe Psalm 43 is for Captain Nathan Algren, hero of Gettysburg, at least in cinema, played by Tom Cruise, who does a miraculous job in the movie. And I haven't always been a fan of that guy, but he can really get into his roles. That's an entirely different subject. Algren is awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor at Gettysburg, no less. But then has to serve under General George S. Custer, one of the biggest prima donnas in the American military, who let his ego and his own glory get in the way of his own men. Sound familiar? And what happened to him? They all perished gruesomely. They lost their scalps gruesomely. And as Algren goes on in The Last Samurai to say, their mutilated bodies puffed up, stunk up, laid in the sun. So maybe in his war against the red man and or the Plains Indians at that time and the atrocities that he had committed, he was pleading with God to rescue me from deceitful and wicked men. Why have you rejected me? I am embroiled with my own thoughts, and I feel as though I am under attack. Then he gets hired to go help the Emperor of Japan conquer the samurais who want to preserve the traditional way, what they perceive to be a simpler and better way, but still be of service to the emperor. And in fact, say, Emperor, should we preserve our culture and our tradition, we will be better off than, let's say, this profuse Western expansion. He goes into battle with Japan's newly formed and modern army. Captain Algren does. And after killing many, although it wasn't his job, he is captured after being wounded twice. He goes to live with the samurai. And although he is not a particularly religious man, in fact, he has decried, "Where are you, God? How could you be involved in all the stuff that I have seen? I have seen warfare on many levels. I have seen innocent people mangled, destroyed. How can this be?" So he lives, as we're waiting for the snow to thaw on the passes, with this warring faction called the samurai. Yet he says they live with such precision, dignity, honor, and discipline. From the moment they wake up, everything is pursued with excellence, no matter the task, no matter a man or a woman. He becomes enamored with them. They both ingratiate themselves to one another. And he becomes one of them. He said that he could not help but receive the spirituality of that existence. So it becomes internalized in him. And it got me to thinking. Now, I don't know what those samurais were worshiping. In the show, we see them on their knees, meditating, and even in temples. So was it Buddhism? Perhaps. Was it nature? Perhaps all the above? Yes. Is that our Christian God? No. But let's transpose that with the modern day Christian and the modern day church. Could even be the modern day pastor. And we just seem as Christian men devoid of purpose. We're able to embrace that spirituality on the samurai side because The goal is to prepare for the future, and the future is war. It is real, it is tangible. You can taste it, you can feel it. It is danger close. But when we have to place our sight in something unseen, and we're waiting for our eternal destination without a purpose and or danger, we kind of feel like pansies. And that's why people fall prey to the world around them, even though they are called to be amongst the world, but not to become the world. I think as Christian men, we need to somehow put a vigor and urgency in ourselves, whether it is our everyday interactions, whether it is the seriousness of either burning forever in unspeakable pain, i.e. the scalping of an Indian that never goes away, around your body in its entirety, or living in the pleasure you seek here on this earth forever with God. How do we make that distinction? I say we need to pursue, like the movie, excellence in our everyday endeavors. Put an attention to detail. Hear it in my voice, a sense of urgency into completing it and to making sure it's done well, and explain why that is if it is to your kids and or your spouse around you. We are trying to conquer ourselves in something so we can feel that same, I would call it greatness of virtue by pursuing something bigger. We need that as men. So let's turn the mundane into something spectacular. So until next time on the Comfortable with Chaos podcast, I bid you bon voyage, my burgeoning flock.
Until next time, like and